King Erminrek ruled now over his kingdom. He was the king in Rome and over many large kingdoms. All the kings from the mountains south and in many other places served and did homage to him. He was the greatest and most powerful of kings in that part of the world called Europe, because even the emperors ruled mostly out in Bulgaria and in Greece. The kingdom of Erminrek stretched all the way to the sea called Adrima. It happened once that King Erminrek sent his counselor, who was named Sifka, to a place called Sarkastein. He was supposed to decide all the king's cases and deem law. He sent many knights with him, and this was a journey that brought much honor. Sifka carried out all his missions, as he had been instructed by King Erminrek, and his wife remained at home. Her name was Odila. She was of all women the most beautiful any man had seen. It took place as the king had planned that Odila remained alone in a certain house. And before she was aware of it, King Erminrek came to her secretly and alone. He told her that he wished to have her will, just as he had often intended before. She did not want to, but there remained no other way than to let the king have his way. And he did as he had often intended, and lay with her. But she resisted so that her clothes were torn apart, and she suffered much for other reasons. Now he departed in one direction, and she went the other way. Sifka now returned home, having carried out the king's mission well. He went home, and he met his wife Odila in his house. And when she saw Sifka, she got up and went toward him weeping and crying sorely. Sifka spoke. "Why are you weeping, lady? I thought you would rather be happy that I have come home, not crying." And she answered, "It will take a long time to tell why I am crying, and about the ill behavior of King Erminrek. It was one time after you had left that I sat in my little room, sewing on your silk tunic. King Erminrek came in, and before he left here, you will never be able to repay with ill the shame that he did me." And she told him everything exactly as it had happened. And Sifka answered, "Be happy, lady, and act as if it had never happened. I shall arrange that the king will pay with many kinds of dishonor before I cease." And Sifka went before the king, bowed before him, and greeted him most cheerfully. The king received him well, and all their dealings were as before. It happened one time that King Erminrek, Sifka, and the king's counselors were sitting in council. Sifka spoke to the king. "Sir, you are the most powerful of all kings, and the greatest in the world. All kings and noblemen do homage to you, and serve your power with great tribute throughout the northern part of the world, except for the part where Osandrix, the king of Hunaland, offers you no honor from his kingdom. And this grieves us much, your best friends, since he is no better a man than those who serve you with honor. I advise you to send your son, the brave Fridrek, to him and bid him offer you tribute first in peace, but let him know that you would send your army against him otherwise. Prepare him richly for the trip, but do not send many men with him. It is the custom with messengers that they not travel with many men. This pleased the king well, and he had it done. He called his son Fridrek and told him how he should arrange his trip and what his mission should be. Fridrek prepared for his trip, and with him went 6 knights. They traveled until they reached the castle called Vilkinaborg. This castle belonged to an earl, who was one of King Osandric's men. Sifka had sent a man secretly but quickly, so that he came to see the earl with a message, saying that when the earl heard about the journey of Prince Fridrek, he should kill him. And the earl was a kinsman of Sifka. Now, when Fridrek came to the castle, the earl and his men came to meet him, and they killed all 7. And thus Fridrek lost his life there, just as Sifka had planned. The king and Sifka came together another time for private council. Sifka spoke. I suspect, sir, that you are not receiving your tribute from England, and you are certainly due tribute from there. I know that if your seal were to go there, the English king would not dare to refuse to pay tribute. It would be my advice that you send your son Reginbald and many knights along with him. It would be a glorious expedition, both for him and for you. I will give you this advice, that you prepare this voyage in a different fashion than is usual with other men. Have a ship prepared for him, because a ship is half as expensive, but twice as magnificent, and your enemies will not be able to deceive him, as they did his brother. And if he receives the tribute, then it is better to transport it on a ship than to carry it on horses. And a ship journey is much more easily carried out than you might have been told. And this advice seemed well put to the king, and he ordered that it be so carried out. He called for his son Reginbald and told him what he planned for him. And so the son asked his father for his advice for the trip, and said he would do everything he wished. Reginbald went to where the ship was laying in a river, and Sifka went with him, and they found 3 ships. Reginbald said that he would have the best ship there. But Sifka said that the king would not permit it, and showed him the worst of the ships, and said that it was good enough for a journey that was no longer than Reginbald's mission. Reginbald did not want to go unless he had a good ship. Sifka answered that he would have to bear his father's wrath if he should return to see him before you have carried out your mission. Reginbald set out and traveled on the worst ship. And when he had gone a little way into the sea, he encountered such a great storm that the ship broke apart, and he and all his men were lost. It happened one time that King Erminrek was riding out hunting, and he had with him his youngest son, Samson, and his counselor Sifka. Sifka was very unhappy, but he rode with the king anyway. The king spoke. "Good Sifka, why are you so unhappy?" And Sifka answered, "Sir, it seems a great shame to me that your son wanted to take my daughter, who is the fairest of maidens, by force. That will never be avenged, sir, unless you avenge it yourself in some way." The king became very angry at his son Samson. He was grown up, but not completely grown. He was the youngest son of the king and the most promising. King Erminrek rode at his son and grasped him in such a rage that he fell from his horse, and the king's horse leapt with all his hoofs onto the boy, so that he was killed. And the king rode home, and the same evening the king heard that his son Reginbald had drowned. He had now lost all his sons through the advice of Sifka, and he was very unhappy. Thus we are closing the 50th part of the Thidrekssaga, after all these acts of revenge by Sifka, which were a usual method in heathen times to obtain back your honor that you've lost before. And so the hardship of the Amlungs, a campaign by Erminrek, and Thidrek's council will be subject of the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, and see you again next time, back here in the Hall of Sagenheim.